Got it.
Almost done.
Okay, okay. Got it.
Welcome back. Welcome back to Living in Mexico. I'm Ana Maria Salazar. Thank you. Thank you so much for joining us. And it's a good moment this weekend. I know we're going to be talking a lot about politics from now on, since the presidential campaigns initiated this Friday. But it's a good moment to just pause for a second and realize what happened literally 4 years ago. No, you don't remember? I can tell you. 4 years ago, the first case of COVID-19 was officially identified in Mexico. Can you believe that? 4 years ago, we are starting the fifth year since COVID-19 started affecting, well, not only Mexico, affecting us around the world. So it's a good time to pause and try to understand where are we, not only in terms of COVID-19 and and the impact it eventually did have on Mexico. And then, of course, we could ask a question: will it have an impact? The reaction or the way the Mexican government handled this case, the COVID-19 pandemic, whether it will have any impact on Mexican politics? Maybe that's a discussion for another moment. But it's a good time to kind of stop and think: are we ready for the next pandemic crisis? That's why I really, really, truly enjoy today's guest. He's been joining us for the last 4 years nonstop to talk about COVID-19. And I've always appreciated Dr. Alejandro Macías, that the way you helped us understand this crisis, not only on this show, but other shows that I have the honor of anchoring. Welcome to the show. It's been 4 years. We're starting on the fifth year. I don't know, reactions, Doctor.
Yeah, we are entering the fifth year. Can you believe it? It's
I
a long,
can't.
long way. And it shows that our health system in Mexico is in big disarray. Uh,
Mm-hmm.
Too many people died.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, Things didn't work well. The
What,
short,
what what are the figures ultimately? What are the figures that you handle in terms of
well,
the number of
we have
Mexicans?
the official figures should be around 350,000 deaths.
Mm-hmm.
But we know that the real number should be around 800,000. Just compare
Mm-hmm.
with, of course, it's a different society, but just compare with Japan. They have the
Mm-hmm.
same amount of people we have, and they have about 70,000 deaths, 10
Mm-hmm.
times less. So something's not well. We have to honor reality, and we
Mm-hmm.
have to say something didn't work well. We better
Mm-hmm.
learn the lessons because we are now in the interpandemic period, which means that eventually we will have a new pandemic, and
Mm-hmm.
we better prepare because it's clear we didn't do well.
You know, there's been a series of international meetings where this idea of this, I don't know what they call it, the X factor or the X pandemic,
Mhm.
pandemic X, is being discussed already, assuming that there's going to be another pandemic crisis and trying to use the COVID-19 experience as a way of trying to understand or try to highlight lessons learned. So let me ask you this. Let's start with Mexico. Is Mexico ready for the next crisis, pandemic
Well,
crisis?
in some areas, we are, but the short answer is no, we are not ready. I mean, when a pandemic comes, you had two kinds of wars. One is the trench war, little by little, just waiting because some viruses, some pathogens like this, we will eventually infect everyone. We know that.
Right.
And with social distancing, uh, we can just keep like the flame at a low level,
Mm-hmm.
just waiting for a better attention for people that we eventually get sick, because we know that we will all get sick, or we need something for a better attention, like to have people vaccinated, to have better intensive care units, better hospitals, which we didn't have. So, I mean, we can't keep just with this trench war, trying to keep social distancing and things like that, when we know that these viruses will eventually infect we all. So some things like, well, social distancing. Mexico was one of the countries that spent more time in home. Like children spent years and years, and our
2
mortality
years.
was very high. So it didn't work well. What happened? That our health system was not working well. We didn't have enough intensive care units. A lot of people died because they didn't have a good attention. Some didn't even have the opportunity to have a ventilator, for instance.
Right.
So we have to do better in those areas. Or to abandon that trench war, you have to go for a different war with vaccines. You know, if a new pandemic starts, you need to a vaccine in the arm of the people in the first 6 months. Mexico didn't have that capacity. Now, talking about things that we did well, we now could do it, because now Mexico has a good capacity for influenza vaccine production and for COVID vaccine production from different platforms. But so in some areas we did well, some areas we didn't do well. But the short answer, as I said, is we didn't do well overall, and we are not ready for the next pandemic. We better learn the lessons.
You know, you're kind of reflecting also this report that was published by the CDC in the United States, which officially drops the 5-day isolation time for COVID-19, just basically recognizing people are going to get sick, and you might as well. I mean, they don't recommend even isolating people anymore. So. And there's a lot of people dying in the United States still of COVID. I mean, it's not as it was 2 years ago, but there's still a relatively high number of people dying because there's still a relatively high number of people who just don't believe in vaccines and won't get vaccinated or won't get the latest booster. So I guess the question is, from now on, where this is the fourth, we're starting the 5th year since COVID appeared. What is the recommendation?
Okay, as you said, and I think that CDC is right. This is not the time for social distancing, because some viruses like this will infect us once and again. So this is the time to honor reality and to know what you have in the health system. We don't have a good primary care system. Just in areas like in Mexico and many other countries in Latin America, people is going for attention in pharmacies with no regulation at all. When they get there, oxygenation is not taken care of, and they get antibiotics. They have steroids in a very bad time, and we say a little like in a joke in Mexico that some people is like a Coca-Cola away from diabetes, and then you inject an steroid, and for 5 days, and 5 days later they go to the hospital like a diabetic, and you cannot do much for that people. We do not have intensive care units. We have very few ventilators. We do not have a good diagnostic capacity. So it's not a surprise what happened. But the problem is that we are not learning the lessons. We are not having a better health system. We need something better. Because now I think that people know now that this is politics. But in politics, they have to express. For instance, I have not heard from any of the candidates in Mexico that they will invest more in health. We need to hear that. We can't be the country that spends less in health in the world, or at least for the OCDE.
Well, and I guess that's what is so worrisome, and perhaps that's why I wanted to talk to you today. I mean, we are initiating the presidential campaigns, And one of the biggest issues that changed Mexico and changed Mexicans' lives is not only the COVID-19 pandemic crisis, but also the medical or the health strategy by this government. And there is no discussion by the candidates about that. The other issue, of course, and it's an issue that we deal a lot here, has to do with security and security issues. So at the end of the day, is it a problem of resources, or or is it a problem of strategy? I mean, how do we start preparing the country for the next crisis?
I think it's both. I mean, because of course, it's not only a problem of resources, but also we have to admit that with 3% of the VIP investment, you just cannot do it. No country could do that. I mean, we have to honor that reality. We have to invest more, at least 6%. And I am not listening from any of the candidates that they will do that, because they say about this, about that, they will improve this, they will do more hospitals, whatever, but they don't say we will invest more in health. If you do not say that, you are not saying anything. Though it's only rhetoric. So we have to invest more. Of course, we have to invest in a little more intelligent way. We have to admit that, for instance, to have a big pharmacy is not a solution, but it's a big expense.
Right.
I mean, for people to have all the drugs they need, no? That's not a good spending of the money. But we need both, and we need experts. And I think that one of the lessons that we have to learn is that we have to go by science. Science is our Google Maps to show us the way, not by politics. And I think that one of the problems in this pandemic in the world over, but particularly in Mexico, is that we went by politics mainly, not by science.
Dr. Alejandro Macías, once again, I really appreciate you joining us here, living in Mexico, as we start the 5th year since the COVID-19 interrupted into our lives. It was 4 years ago that the first case was formally identified in Mexico. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you, Ana Maria. It's my pleasure.
Thank you. We're going to go to another commercial break. I'm Ana Maria Salazar, and you're listening and watching Living in Mexico. Don't go away. I'll be right back.